Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going there? Well, just want to say that I'm happy today. I am happy today and I feel really chilly. And the good news that this channel is really growing. Not fast, but it's growing. No problem. So we are now 2.503 subscriber. We have some good interaction from people. We're still far from the big dudes who have 1 million subscriber, but yeah, we are on the good path, I hope. So you're welcome. Right. So what is the topic of this video? So if you remember, we are doing some stuff using Angular 9, Bootstrap, and we are creating this beautiful template. So that is basically it's not mine, as I said a million times. It's hosted on Colorlib for some dudes out there. I think it's even free for download if you want to get it, but we are training on this template and we are transforming it into something using Angular. So here I just want to make the zoom bigger. Hopefully you are seeing everything well because I'm recording in a huge screen here. But anyway, so I go to go to settings, appearance, and we have to set this to something like 150. That become huge that you can see it even on your phone. So by the way, I really recommend using this. Finally Microsoft is doing something good for humanity instead of creating some bullshitty Internet Explorer. Alright, what about getting into the subject of this video? So we said that we're almost done with the design. Now what about getting some dynamic stuff into our template? And as I said in the previous episode, I will be using Symfony as my source of data, my dynamic source of data. So the very first thing to do is to learn what is Symfony here. And if you don't know what is Symfony, you can check one of my courses, Symfony, Udemy, Alloy, something like that. Type this and you will get this course. So okay, so this is my course. It's a good one, a lot of people like it, and I will be giving you a link to this link in the description of this video if you are interested on learning Symfony. But don't worry, in this tutorial, well, Symfony won't be a first-class citizen. We'll be using it for simply displaying some dynamic stuff, rendering some objects, and using that as a backend that we could get data from that. So first step, googling Symfony. If you're interested, you can find a lot of stuff here in symfony.com, but for now I will keep things simple and I go to this beautiful blue button and go to well, here it's up to you really to pick which platform they are using. So if you're Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. Well, if you are Windows, then you'll be using this setup.exe that will be downloading actually a Symfony like a bundle. It's not a bundle, but actually a file containing some scripts that will enable you to execute some PHP related Symfony scripts. If you are in the almighty Linux, then your bash is your friend, and basically I'll be using Linux here, using the WSL that facilitate life for me, thank God. And there we go. So I already done that. So if you did set up everything correctly, then you could type something like this, Symfony, here in the console, and you will get autocomplete working well. And there we go. So you have all this stuff here. I don't know why the heck is not, it's faded out. But anyway, so let's go ahead and create our very first Symfony application. So here, let me just go to my desktop where I host my project here. And what I've done here, that I created a folder that inside it I put actually the front application. And here I'll go ahead and create a new Symfony application that will be hosted under a mail-bo folder. Okay, let's go back to the Symfony website, and from here scroll a bit down, and we have two solutions or two ways to create a new application, whether using Symfony new -- full and the name of your project, or Symfony, sorry, new my project. So what is the difference is simply this full will guarantee that you will have a fully functioning or functional application with all the dependencies, all the package that you need and that you may not need, sorry. So this is kind of old school way when you download everything and you use 1%. So it's kind of silly solution. And this is the modern solution, which is downloading and using very minimalistic solution, and just get the let's say the principal packages for your application without downloading like 115,000 billion trillion package that you never going to use. Okay, so Symfony new mail, and okay, what is this mail? Do we have a mail? I'll say, oh yeah, sorry, I just said I would be adding BO here. So this some stuff you start being executed here. So just to note here that you must have actually Composer installed. If you are a Linux or Mac OS or Windows, then you can simply do Composer, PHP Composer, and you have simply to follow the stuff that is written in this. Wow, look at that dude. You go to download, and here you have all the instruction, whether for shitty.exe file or doing the terminal stuff, then you're good to go. Okay, so let's go back to our terminal here. As I said, it will be downloading some stuff in the back office on the background, and after a while then we'll be having some stuff that we could talk about. So after an eternity we have downloaded that stuff packages. So let's go ahead and open that in the IDE. So here this is the front application and this is the back application, and let's give it a quick look inside what is inside. So we have the bin here that is basically a PHP file containing some scripts to be executed, which is a kind of kernel, some namespaces, some packages actually downloaded here. Well, a bunch of stuff that's not really interested, that you don't need to bother yourself with. Same for the config public src. So src, as always, is the playground of all the majestic stuff. So controllers here, that will be creating our very first controller, and we have the kernel, which is the kernel of the application. It's like the kernel of your operating system, containing loading of the packages, of the configuration using YAML. Yeah, pretty much good stuff happening here. Don't also bother yourself. And we have some M file here for defining some environment variable, like a node, composer lock. It's like package.json and package lock.json, so you like brothers here. And yeah, config here actually containing some configuration like database connection, some routings, some services injections. Well, don't bother yourself. Okay, now if you should know, or you have to know, that Symfony came bundled with its own server, so you don't really need any stupid fancy stuff like example, WAMP or crap or whatever just to boot up your application. You have to know that you have a local server, a powerful local server as written here, that you can use it to boot up your application. And to do that, you have simply to do this beautiful command, Symfony server start -d. Well, by the way, server in the background, so D is like detach, like we use in Docker when you use detach, just to avoid to locking the terminal for that process. So let's keep things simple here, and let's go back to our terminal. Just make sure that you are inside your BO folder and run Symfony server start, and let's see what will happen. So hit enter, and there we go. We are welcomed with this big banner in yellow and green, and that said here that we have an active server running in the port 8000. So let's go ahead and discover what's going on there. type that, and we have this this page that is that does look beautiful, with a welcome saying what kind of version we are using, where our application is hosted, or the directory, or the directory that is wrapping your application. Your application now is ready and you can start working with it. Some links and some nothing. Okay, so this is basically mean nothing. We cannot use this application as a backend application because it won't serve anything to the front, because we are expecting to have something like products, something like let's say foods or something like that, I don't know. But as you may see, every time we try to reach something like this food, we get no route found. So how can we solve? How actually can we start coding? So look at this. You're seeing this page because you haven't configured any home page URL and debug mode is enabled. Forget this little section and let's focus on this one. Home page URL. So in Symfony, when we say home or a page, actually, we are talking about a controller and a method inside that controller. So let's go back to our IDE. And if you look here inside the SRC, where I said that everything will be happening here, we have controller folder, but we don't have any files. Okay. So what about creating very first controller? Let's call this meal controller dot PHP. Okay, so the capsulation, is that the capsulation? So you have to write like camel case structure, naming convention, meal M on uppercase and C on uppercase, and here don't forget to start with the famous PHP tag. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to define for Symfony controller is a namespace. So the namespace is basically a namespace that I cannot say a lot of things about it. So it's basically a namespace that helping the kernel of Symfony to load this controller from. Okay, so here it will be app/controller. Okay, so that name is defined correctly, but here, as you may see, look to the error, syntax unexpected, because basically the namespace is always a backslash. Okay, no forward slash, forget that. Now we could define our class name, which is mail controller. Okay, so right now we don't need really to extend anything. Everything is wired automatically and done by yourself. I hope that I won't make things so complicated. As I said, we're using Symfony just to do some interaction, so don't get deep into that. And we need to create our very first method. So it will be public and function here, and we call this, let's say, products. Okay, so products won't take any parameter, but it will return a type of response that is basically HTTP response. Okay, so here I will do return new response, and by the way, here I'm using an extension that is helping me to load dynamically these namespaces. So we'll be returning an instance of this class that is under the HTTP Foundation, the very famous package on Symfony world. And here I will simply say let's response hello from Symfony 5, whatever. Okay, oops, what is that? Okay, so that is pretty cool, but it is not enough because Symfony don't know how to, let's say, map calls, HTTP calls to this function. Okay, so in Symfony there is many ways to actually redirect call HTTP calls to URLs, and you could type Symfony routing here if you are interested. And there is a beautiful article here, beautiful actually chapter that is explaining how to do routing. First of all, you need to have, so this is actually one of the types, which is annotation, and you need to install that package that you could do annotation routing, and it's basically like this. So you do this special command syntax and add route, the route that you need to map to, and just a name here for referencing URL. Also, we could use YAML here XML, I'm not really a big fan, or simply PHP classes. But here, as I said, we won't get really deep into this, and we will keep things by default. And by default, Symfony came with a routing from under the config folder and a routes.yaml. So we have a beautiful command here that should make life easy for us. So we have this kind of key index, and we have the path, how this URL will look like, and the controller that will be, let's say, controlling that call, and what kind of method that will be responsible to respond to that calls. So here we have index. We could change this to products, or do that API for fancy names. Oh, what is that? Forget it. And we have the path here that we could change it to products here. Oops. And app controller, we don't have default controller, but actually we have mail controller, and we need to check the name of the function. So our function is called the products. Okay, let's do products now, and let's test this out. So let's do /products, and we should see a response. So hello. From Symfony 5, everything is working well. Now we need to turn this response into something look like a JSON. So instead of new response, I will do new JSON response. There we go. So let's remove this. We don't need it. And we need to return a valid JSON object. Okay, so even now if I refresh using that, look what I get. I get actually a stringed, or is that correct? Is I stringed? We get like a JSON string, something, whatever. So here, let's return an array. So let's say name, and this is how we write arrays in PHP. And if I do refresh, there we go. Oops, let's reduce this huge zoom. So we have a valid JSON response with a name as a key, and the value is that hello from Symfony 5. Pretty cool. Okay, now what about getting our mocks and return them as a valid response? Okay, so as I said here, we won't really get deep, and we won't integrate a database connection, etc. Just to keep the video, like, oh, the series focused on Angular, sorry. So our mocks are under the app mocks here, and let's start by products here, and this is our, let's say, mock. Okay, so there's a good tools on the web called JSON to PHP array that I will need help. So you have to simply Google JSON to PHP array. There we go. And you have to pick, I think this is it. Tools, there we go. Yes, there you go. So finally, we have our object ready. We have simply to copy it and move back to our mail controller here. And instead of this no-sense response, let's remove it and paste our new response. Okay, now if I go back to the front and hit the /product, look what I will get. I will get a valid JSON response that is ready actually to be consumed inside our front application. So we can say that our work is pretty much done for this little part. Then we have like a valid endpoint that do return some stuff. Now we could move back to our application, and let's close all these ones and go back to front application. So go back to your component. If you still remember, it's called our products. We need the TS and the HTML files. And if you also still remember, we are consuming like a mocked JSON version that is hosted here. Okay, there we go. So this is actually the mock, and we need to update this. Okay, so since we'll be using web services here, the good practice is actually to create some, let's say, shared logic between all the components, because later when we continue on this application, then we'll be having like a dynamic like product or featured product. We'll be having like dynamic text here, dynamic list of chiefs, etc, etc. So we need to create a service. So here under the app directory, create a new folder. Let's call that shared, not shidded. Okay, then inside this shared, okay, so we already have services. Well, it seems like I did some work behind the curtain. So normally this service folder should reside under the shared folder, that everything should be ergonomically organized. Okay, let's keep things simple. Don't waste time with this IDE. So here, normally inside your service directory, you should create a service using your terminal. So it's simply ng generate. You could do something like this: ng generate service, and you name API, for example, and you will generate the service for you and the config file for it, or the testing file. So this is my current service that pretty much do nothing for now. So it's a service that do inject the HTTP client here. And why I'm still getting this user shared, not permitted, whatever, forget it, forget that. So here we are injecting the HTTP client, and we have one method that is get product that does return an observable of type any. And it does return, as I said, an observable. So it just query that params API URL products. Okay, so behind the curtain also I created this params file that is containing bunch of parameters. For now we only have API URL that is containing the URL to our backend application. Pretty cool. And here we are simply appending the products to that URL. Okay, now let's go back to our controller, our product components, and here we'll be calling .api. So as always, we need to inject the service. So it's called, let's call this API of type API service. There we go. It's mapped pretty quickly, and don't forget to add the private here. There we go. Now after that, go to your ng.init, or even in the constructor if you'd like to do that. So I will do this .api.get product, and we don't pass any parameter, and we hit subscribe. And here normally we'll be having some data that we'd like to do console log, come on, and we'll be simply passing data. So let's give it a look. Everything is green, no problem. Now if I move back to my application and open the console, what do we get? In cannot dashboard. What? Let's refresh this page because I don't trust these kind of errors. Well, we are running into a problem here because null injector found, no provider. So this is a very famous error. So simply you have to pick this and Google it, and it will tell you that you need to include the HTTP client module inside your API module, or app module, like the French dudes say, and comma, and that should fix the problem for us. Okay, let's try this out. We are refreshing, we have no errors, but we need to review our responsivity here, dudes. But no problem. So we have a problem. We are running into this weirdo no sense. So basically it's control low origin. It's the famous cause problem. So we need to go back to Symfony and simply have to Google Symfony cause. Okay, so we need well, this is it actually. This is a good bundle. Well, no more bundles on Symfony 5, but they still called bundles. So we have to actually install this little command here, composer rec. So rec is like composer install or composer I. It's the same things. Okay, and we need simply to run this little command. So let's create a new terminal here and run composer rec. And after that, you don't have to do anything. Installing, clearing the cache, blah blah blah, and everything should be fine now. Let's retest this out and let's do an F5 here. There we go. We have our object valid. Okay, so our backend is responding correctly. Now we need to wire it into this kind of toggled or tabs, whatever it's called. Okay, so app module, thank you for your help. Now we need to do the following. So these are our products. Instead of having our products from the mock, we'll be passing an empty array. And since this is an observable here, so this is actually returning observable, so we could do something like this dot product or our product equal to that, and we don't need to do this. We'll be using the async what is missing the following property from any. Okay, so we need to type this to observable of type any. Okay, so here we don't really need to map, but actually we need to subscribe to this. And let's copy all this stuff that will be inside this data. There we go. So we'll be having here data.map, and that should be okay. So now if I do refresh, normally I won't see any good news because there is no product displayed here, only these tabs, right? And to fix this, we need to go to HTML template, and where we do have the product loop statement, it's basically this one. So here, instead of our product, I will add this async. So now if I do refresh, it seems like there is nothing displayed, but the good thing is that we don't have any errors. So I would like to really inspect and see what's going on. So these are the tabs, and here we have the products, and as you may see, everything is rendered except it's hidden. Okay, so we have a dnon here. So we have an injected class with a dnon properties that somewhere rendered here for some rules. So the dnon is this one. Okay, dnon is true when the product category is equal to clean category name different than active tab. Product category clean category name. Ah, there you go. So this is actually a pipe. Sorry, I get confused. So what does this do? Actually, if value equal to undefined, return undefined. Elsewhere, replace all the searched here value. Yes, okay, all the empty space. Good, no problem. So for now, let me just force this just to make sure that my loop is working correctly. So the loop is working well and all the data is being rendered. So close the main controller, the pipe 2, and let's concentrate on this one. So we have dnon when the product category equal to active tab. Okay, so what about displaying both of these things? Yes, added some stuff, active tab, and here, okay, again I will do this. So refreshing. And what do we have? We have a dinner here, dinner, breakfast, brunch, breakfast, brunch. Well, that seems to be okay for the part 1, which is the category of the product, but for the active tab is not working, because if you go back to the controller, our product component.ts, this is where the active tab is being defined. So it's basically getting the array from this categories, the very first index. So sometime in life we need to take the easy solution, and this will be an array, and let's remove this useless, and this active tab should be working correctly. Come on, refresh this. And look down here, we have dinner, so our filter should be working correctly back. So if I do bench, I do see all of them, because actually I was I tricked the class here, if you still remember, and we need to put this back to denown. So stupidly, let me just explain. Here we have an async execution that is not waiting to finish, right? And I'm trying to do something that is depending on this data, right? So stupid mistake from like a beginner level. So I'm sorry for that. So now everything is fine, everything is working, and I could say that I am happy with this. So that is how we did include Symfony into our ecosystem, to our leader ecosystem, with a bit of struggle at the end. So I'm sorry for that. So in the next episode, I don't know what we have to do. We keep on going with this series, or just moving to some React stuff. So if anybody have, let's say, have the time that he's still watching until this now, you could vote if you'd like to see some React, or we could continue with this. So as always, thank you for watching, and peace.